Of the 70 men who wore the purple between 27 BC and 476 AD, historians estimate that nearly half died by assassination, execution, or forced suicide. Not old age, not illness, violence. The most powerful man in the known world had better odds of dying peacefully as a common soldier than as the emperor who commanded him. Tiberius Claudius Nero Caesar Augustus Germanicus, known to history simply as Nero, understood this arithmetic too late. By 68 AD, the Senate had declared him a public enemy, his own guard had abandoned their posts, and the empire he inherited from Claudius had turned against him. In a matter of weeks, he fled Rome with 3 loyal freedmen, hid in a suburban villa, and gave the order himself. A dagger, held by his own trembling hand, guided by a secretary who could not bear to watch. His last words, according to Suetonius, lamented not his death, but the artist dying in him. He was 30 years old. Historians still argue over how many of Rome's emperors reached old age at all. The honest answer is, fewer than you'd expect and fewer than they expected. Because in Rome, the throne was never a resting place, it was a countdown, and every man who sat on it knew, somewhere beneath the marble and the titles, that the only real question was not if the end would come violently, but when, and at whose hand. Caligula understood danger better than most men who have ever lived, yet he still misjudged where it would come from. He filled his court with informants, executed senators on suspicion alone, and reportedly told his own guard that they should fear him more than love him. In January of 41 AD, that guard proved him wrong. The Praetorians he trusted to protect his body were the same men who cornered him in a palace corridor and ended it there. The emperor of Rome dying, not on a battlefield, but in a hallway among the people paid to keep him alive. His uncle Claudius inherited the throne almost by accident, dragged from behind a curtain by soldiers who needed anyone to install. He would rule for 13 years, longer than most, and it would not be a blade that finally reached him. It was a plate of mushrooms, according to Tacitus, prepared by a wife who had already chosen his successor. Before he stopped breathing, no struggle, no confrontation, just a quiet dinner and a throne that changed hands before the body was cold. Ask yourself, what safety even meant inside that palace? The guards could turn, the food could betray you. The family sworn to protect the bloodline was the bloodline's greatest threat. Nero grew up watching all of this, learning the lesson before he ever wore the purple. In Rome, power did not protect you from those closest to you. It simply gave them more reason to move first. Nero's death left a vacuum, and Rome discovered in a single year exactly how fast that vacuum could consume a man. 69 AD, 4 emperors. 12 months. Galba came first, an old general the Senate hoped would restore order. He lasted 7 months. He refused to pay the bonus his own soldiers expected, and soldiers who feel cheated do not stay loyal. They cut him down in the Forum, the streets he was supposed to command. Turned into the place he died. Otho followed. The man who had arranged Galba's murder, believing the throne was finally his. 3 months. That was the entirety of his reign, ended not by assassination this time, but by his own hand. After his army lost to a rival's forces at Bedriacum, he chose suicide. Over the shame of prolonging a war he knew he'd already lost. Vitellius took the purple next, and the pattern didn't pause to catch its breath. 8 months later, his own capital turned against him. Vespasian's forces entered Rome, and the crowd that once cheered Vitellius dragged him through the streets themselves, ending his reign in public humiliation before it ended his life. 4 men, 1 throne, 12 months. Ask yourself what that says about the nature of power in Rome. It was never a destination, it was a door that opened and closed with terrifying speed, and the men walking through it rarely got to choose. When it shut behind them, by the 3rd century, Rome had learned a lesson it could never unlearn. The throne belonged to whoever the army decided it belonged to, and the army's loyalty changed with the weather. Historians count over 20 emperors. In roughly 50 years, some ruled for a decade, some ruled for weeks. Almost none died in bed. Maximinus Thrax, the first emperor who had never even set foot in Rome before taking power, was murdered by his own soldiers. Outside the walls of Aquileia, his head presented to the Senate. as proof the threat was over. Gordian III, still a teenager when he took the throne, died under circumstances his own army never fully explained. Somewhere on a campaign in the east, the official story and the likely truth never quite matching. Aurelian, one of the empire's most capable generals, was killed by officers who believed a forged document proving he planned to execute them. Men who murdered a man over a lie they never bothered to verify. Ask yourself, what kind of position guarantees your death not from your enemies, but from the men sworn to die for you? This was the arithmetic of the 3rd century. The soldiers who could win you the throne were the same soldiers who could decide on any given morning that you no longer deserved to keep it. Domitian believed paranoia was a survival strategy. He lined the walls of his palace corridors with sheets of polished mica, reflective stone. That let him see anyone approaching from behind. He trusted almost no one, executed suspected conspirators on rumor alone. And still, in 96 AD, a group that included his own chamberlain stabbed him to death inside that same mirrored palace. The walls that were supposed to reveal every threat behind him did nothing to stop the one standing in front of him. Commodus took precaution further, sleeping in guarded chambers, surrounding himself with loyalists, obsessing over his own image. As a living Hercules, none of it mattered when his mistress and his chamberlain, the people closest to him, decided he had become a liability. Poison failed first, strangulation in his bath finished the job. The most protected man in Rome died naked and alone, betrayed by the two people with the easiest access to him. Caracalla, murdered while relieving himself on the roadside during a military campaign, might be the cruelest irony of all. Ask yourself, if the throne itself makes you a target, does building higher walls actually protect you? Or does it simply guarantee that when the betrayal comes, it comes from someone already standing inside them? Not every emperor died at the hands of his own people. Some discovered that the empire's enemies could deliver a fate crueler than any assassin ever had. In 260 AD, Emperor Valerian marched to negotiate peace with the Persian king Shapur I and never marched back. He was captured alive, the only Roman emperor in history taken prisoner by a foreign power, and what followed became one of antiquity's most humiliating footnotes. Persian sources, and later Roman historians, describe Shapur using Valerian as a human footstool, forcing the emperor of Rome to kneel, so a foreign king could mount his horse on the back of the man who once commanded the known world. Ask yourself what that does to a civilization's sense of itself, watching its highest office reduced to furniture. When Valerian died in captivity, some accounts claim his skin was stuffed with straw and displayed as a trophy, a permanent warning, stored in a Persian temple. Rome had survived poison, daggers, and mutiny. It had never survived watching its own emperor become another king's ornament, and it would carry that particular humiliation long after the empire itself began to fall apart. In the end, the throne of Rome offered everything except the one thing every man who sat on it actually wanted: not gold, not conquest, just a peaceful death, an ordinary ending, the kind available to almost anyone who never wore the purple at all. Power built palaces, commanded armies, rewrote borders, and still could not buy the one guarantee that mattered most. Thank you for watching this video, and if you learned something, make sure to leave a like, comment down below which emperor's death shocked you the most, and subscribe if you would like to see a part 2. Covering the emperors we didn't have time to include here today, Rome rose on the backs of men who believed they had finally escaped the reach of betrayal. History remembers otherwise. It remembers the guards who turned, the wives who poisoned, the soldiers who mutinied, and the throne that never once kept its promise of safety to the men who fought hardest to sit on it. Power may rise, but it rarely protects the one who holds it. Thank you again, and goodbye.